While celebrating a gold medal with his home country in Chechnya, the rumor mill of Martin Necas moving on from the Carolina Hurricanes continues to grow.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everyday for making this your first listen of the day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I am your host, Zach Martin. I am the Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. I also do some AHL coverage over at the Calder Times, and I'm also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a very interesting Tuesday show for everyone, as the fact that I will be going over some reactions to the latest couple episodes from 32 Thoughts and how Elliotte Friedman and Jeff Merrick have been talking about Martin Necas and possible rumblings of him being moved in case if the Hurricanes don't bring him back for next season. And there's also been some, rumors and some, I guess, things happening with something good happening between Brady Skjei or Brett Pesce in terms of maybe staying in Carolina or all that good stuff as well. But before we jump to everything that is a Tuesday edition of the show, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So, like I said, Martin Necas over the weekend won the gold medal back on Sunday with Czechia as they defeated Switzerland 2-0 to win their first goal for the first time since in the late 1980s. He had 7 points in 5 games for them as they went on to win the gold medal. He scored scored a goal in the 4-2 game that beat Sweden, and then helped get the empty net goal to secure the win for the Czech Republic, or Chechnya, however you want to call them, in their win over Switzerland. They celebrated on Monday with the fans and just being able to, bring some more memories to the fans who saw their home country host the event and win it on home ice. And with all of that going on, the episode from Monday with Friedman and Merrick over at 32 Thoughts, they were talking about how, last week Friedman did bring up the Canucks were still interested in Martin Necas, and in that, he was initially in a deal that could have sent him to the Canucks for Elias Pettersson in some term of deal, but that obviously didn't happen, since Pettersson did sign a deal with the Canucks to stay there through the 2031-32 season that saw him. It's going to see him get paid $11.6 million AAV over that time frame. However, though, there has been some rumblings and there's been some news, and that Friedman has been hearing that the Canucks are still interested in the 25-year-old Chechnyan right winger, and they'll hopefully try to bring him there. And he also does want to play center, so could there be a possibility of him getting some center ice time with the Canucks? Because right now, if you look at their center depth, it's Elias Pettersson and JT Miller. And could you possibly see Martin Necas be their third center, or move JT down to be the third center and make Martin Necas their second? Who really knows? But I'm really curious to see what the guys over at Locked On Canucks think about all of this stuff. So if you haven't, make sure to go check them out, because they've probably done something on Martin Necas. Or they, like I said, they could bring him over there as a winger as well. So, like I said, there is still some rumblings of the Canucks still interested in Martin Necas, and in that there was a name that was brought up last week from Elliotte Friedman in on Monday's episode. It was confirmed to him that Phil Hronek would be a good fit for the Carolina Hurricanes in a deal that could see him going to Carolina if they want to move on from Martin Necas. And with Necas, looking at the 23-24 season as a whole, during the regular season campaign, he had 24 goals, 29 assists for 53 points in 77 games, while finishing as a -9. And in the playoffs, he had 4 goals and 9 points in 11 games for the Carolina Hurricanes. He is going to be a restricted free agent, and he's also arbitration eligible too. So it's another wrinkle or a thing that could be looking at too, what could happen if a deal with the Canucks and the Hurricanes do work out, and the fact that Martin Necas' rights does go to Vancouver, And then how do you figure out, do they go through arbitration? Do they sign for a long-term extension? Who really knows? But, being 25, the season he had, which was, it was up and down. You kind of saw him, he had a slow first half, and then when 2024 turned around, you kind of see that something clicked in him and things just started working out. And especially how he played, for Czechian in the 2024 IAHF Men's Worlds, his draft stock only went up, and it'd really be really interesting to see what a possible deal could look like. And I know I talked to Matthew Zader, who is the Vancouver Canucks beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. I was talking to him and getting an idea of like what obviously Martin Necas would be part of the deal, but like getting his thoughts on what Merrick and Friedman talked about for Filip Hronek, and he even said a deal with Hronek and Martin Necas is very doable for both teams, especially for the fact that with the up in the air question marks of Brady Skjei and or Brett Pesce staying with Carolina, Hronek would be a player that could come in to replace a Brett Pesce as your second line defensive pair on the right side. He is a right side defenseman, and he's also from the Czech Republic. He is 26 years old, and he is also arbitration eligible, and he's coming off a contract where he's just finishing up a 3-year, $13.2 million deal that he signed with the Detroit Red Wings back in September of 2021. So he is a restricted free agent too. He's also an arbitration eligible player. And with the Canucks this past season, he probably had the best season of his career in terms of the fact that if you look at his, in terms of goals, he's had a year where he's had 9 a couple times, but in terms of assists, he had 43 assists, best ever in his career. Like the next closest one was 33 back in the 21-22 season with the Red Wings, but in terms of points, he had 48. Next best was, the Red Wings of 22-23, which was 38, and 21-22, which was also 38 as well. But if you look at just how the fact of how he played, overall with the Canucks this past season, like I said, 5 goals, 43 assists for 48 points in 81 games, and he was a plus 33, which was the best ever for his career. The next best for him was 8 with the Red Wings last year, and if you look at it overall, he was a 7 if you count the Canucks in the 4 games they played for them last year. And in the playoffs, he did get 2 goals. He had 2 points in 13 games with the Vancouver Canucks, and like I said, he's an RFA. He's only a year older, also a fellow Czech, so it wouldn't be a bad option for the Hurricanes if you go look at him as your Brett Pesce replacement, possibly. I mean, who really knows? And I talked to Matthew Zayer. He's a good, puck moving defenseman, someone that could be a great replacement for Pesce that could work well with Brady Skjei, and the fact that too you look at him as a guy that could play really well with Brady Skjei, if that's the second defensive pair going into next season, someone that could be that defensive guy that works well with Brady Skjei's offense, still be able to move the puck back, could use him on the PK. Like I said, a plus 33, you can't get anything better than that for a defenseman. And he had a great season with the Canucks in his first year with his first full season with the team, and you look at best assists, best points, best plus minus of his entire career on a Canucks team that a lot of people thought weren't really going to do well this year, but absolutely did phenomenal and made it to the second round, and unfortunately lost to the Oilers in 7 games. But you're looking at a guy who will fill a need for the Hurricanes if they're not able to bring Pesce back. You've got your right side defenseman that could slot in with Brady Skjei if you are able to keep Skjei in. If you're only able to keep one of those 2 guys, Hronek could be a solid replacement that could fit within the Hurricane system. And Elliotte Friedman and Jeff Merrick were both talking about it, and Friedman kept saying Hronek to Carolina would be a good fit. He's heard it from other people within the hockey world that cover the NHL in general, is the fact that Hronek could be a solid guy to go to Carolina if the Hurricanes aren't able to work something out with Martin Necas, and the fact that Vancouver is interested in him, even despite the fact that the deal with Pettersson didn't go through. And what possible deal could work it out? I know in an article that I got coming out soon with possible destination spots for Martin Necas, Hronek going to Vancouver, Hronek does get brought up, and I think a deal where you could see a possible 1-for-1 with picks involved could be the way to go. It all really depends on what Carolina also views as valuable to get from Vancouver, also what Vancouver might be looking at too. I mean, it could be a thing where, Carolina could get Hronek and a prospect and a pick for Martin Necas with just how his trade stock keeps going up. So who really knows? I mean, certain situations and certain teams view things differently, but I mean, if you're looking at a base starting point for a trade that could involve Necas going to Vancouver, I could see Hronek and a third round pick from 2024 and, as a starting base. And who knows, you could throw a prospect in there and then you're looking at a possible 4th rounder going back with Necas to the Canucks. So who really knows? But I think just overall looking at how, Martin Necas has been brought up multiple times by Friedman on 32 Thoughts, and the fact that Hronek's been also been brought up too. I wouldn't be surprised that if maybe Carolina doesn't work out, that could be a destination spot for him. And the fact that the Hurricanes could figure out a need that they're going to have on their blue line in Hronek. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that could possibly happen. Of course, you would love to keep Martin Necas with the team, and you got to figure out what type of contract he's looking at. Because, like I said, he just got paid $3 million over the last couple of years on his bridge deal. So he could be looking for more, especially the way he played at the Worlds. And with Phil Hronek, he just finished a contract that saw him get $4.4 million over the last 3 years. So are you looking at 5.5? Are you looking at 5? Maybe 5.5? I wouldn't be surprised if it was 5.5 for Hronek that he might be getting. It all really depends on if he wants a bridge with the Hurricanes or if the Hurricanes want to keep him long term, because he's only 26. So you could give him a 4-year deal that gets him to 30 and then go from there. And just what do you give him? Do you give him 5? Do you give him 5.5? Do you even possibly give him 6? So I guess it all really depends on what they want to do. And then, of course, they could go to arbitration too and just go from there. So a lot of different options. But, I mean, Martin Necas is going to be looking at between $6 and $7 million. And, maybe the Hurricanes do work it out where they keep him, and, then you're thinking about, okay, what happens to Jake Gensel? So a lot of moving parts and a lot of things that who knows really what really happens. And that Martin Necas wants a higher role within the team. He wants to go back to PP1. He's been wanting to play center for a long time, and maybe the Canucks are a place that could give him that chance. Who really knows? But definitely something to keep an eye on. But I know with the fact that, Friedman and Merrick have been talking about this a lot over the last few episodes of the Canucks and Necas, I wouldn't be surprised if something does happen as we go through the offseason. So there's a lot more to talk about on the show. I know in segment 2 there's going to be there's another possibility of another Necas location, and we'll talk about that here in a second on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Game Time makes getting NBA Final tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. The one thing I like using about the Game Time app is that you get last-minute tickets, flash deals, and zone deals, and also, too, the views from your seat all in the venue is a big contributor as well. In terms of the last-minute deals, you can save up to 60% off buying last-minute for sports, concerts, comedy theater, and so much more. Along with their flash deals, you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or events. And with their zone deals, you can save more when you choose the section, but you let Game Time choose the seat for you. And talking about the seats, they also have this great feature with their seat views. You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know what your zone areas look like, to see what your sidelines will be from your actual seat. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA Final tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said at the end of segment 1, I was, talking about Martin Necas and talking about the Vancouver, him possibly being the Vancouver Canucks might be an option for him in terms of trade for the Hurricanes. But another one that I was thinking about, and I talked to Jacob Billington, who's the Ottawa Senators beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. I was talking to him a possible what could look like for Martin Necas going to the Senators. I said, is there any forwards they can give up? Like a center, stuff like that. Float around Shane Pinto and stuff like that. And he said, unfortunately, Shane Pinto is not an option. I know Hurricanes fans were, looking at, possibly a right shot in Pinto coming back to Carolina, but it looks like that he's not going to be an option for the Hurricanes. And I know he even said that Josh Norris is someone that the Hurricanes aren't looking at in terms of a second line center. But the name he did throw out, and I thought was very, very interesting, was Jacob Chychrun. The left shot, left D-man, who can actually play both sides, because I know in Cap Friendly he is listed as a left defense, right defense. But he did say that the 26-year-old Boca Raton defenseman, he does have dual citizenship for Canada and the United States, but he's a lot better on the left side, and the fact that he's a former 16th overall pick from the Arizona Coyotes back in 2016, he's someone that could really work for the Hurricanes. Now, in terms of what his contract is, he is going into the last year of his 6-year, $27.6 million deal, which does give him a $4.6 million AAV, which also has a 10-team no trade list and is a UFA after next season. So in terms of that, you are going to get a guy in Chychrun who you do have term, at least with him, and the fact that you're looking at a contract that is cheaper than what Skjei and Pesce both had. Pesce was just a tad under 5, and Brady Skjei was over 5. If you go get Jacob Chychrun, you would get a contract that's at $4.6 million. And just like how Hronek was the Brett Pesce replacement, Jacob Chychrun would be your Brady Skjei replacement on that left side of the second D pair. And honestly, if you look at Chychrun and you look at Brett Pesce as a second line pairing, that's not a bad second pairing. Chychrun's got good offensive upside. Defense, he's okay. He's almost right around where Brady Skjei is, where like his defense isn't terrible. It's about average, but he's got a good offensive side to him, and he's someone that could fit it within the Hurricanes organization. If you look at how he played this past season with the Ottawa Senators, he did have 14 goals, 27 assists, and 41 points in 82 games, which for points wise, it ties his career best that he had back in 2021 with the Arizona Coyotes. We had 41 points. But he did have a career high in assists. The next best season was that same year where he got 41 points. He had 23 assists that season while only playing in 56 games. But the fact that he did have more assists, goals wise, it was his second best goal total of his career at 14. He had 18 back in 2021 as well. You do have to overlook his minus 30, but of course, with his ice time, he did play over 22 minutes, and he was on an Ottawa Senators team that wasn't really great. And he took a lot of penalties this past year. This was a career high in penalty minutes where he had 60. So a lot of PIMs for Jacob Chychrun. Minus 30 wasn't probably his worst plus minus. But like I said, too, it wasn't really a great year for the Senators overall. But the good upside is, though, he did play all 82 games for the first time in his career. So he was able to overcome, what was an injury bug that he's had over the last few years, where you're looking at, 1920 had 63 games, 56, 47, and then played 36 with the Coyotes in the first part of 22-23, and then played in 12 games with the Senators. So you're looking at, 48 games last year. So this is the first year he played in all 82 games. And he's not another bad option, too, if you want to look at someone who could fit within the Hurricanes organization. And like I said, still fills that need of that second D pair line that you could see with how Hronek would be the Pesce replacement, Chychrun would be the Skjei replacement. And you've got at least a year under him, and you have a chance to possibly extend him long term, because he's, if you look at, the age of Chychrun, he's also 26. So he's the same age as Hronek. So you're still looking at the fact that you're getting, either your left shot left defenseman or your right shot right defenseman in either Chychrun or Hronek. Both are still good options, for your fact that you get your replacements and the fact that it fills a need that you're going to need next season if you can't keep either Skjei or Pesce. And yes, I know the injury bug hasn't really been good to him, but he did play a full season finally for the first time. Did have a career best in terms of assists and points wise, he basically tied it. Now, like I said, you just got to overlook his minus 30 and his uptick in PIMS, but it's just he was not on a great Senators team. But overall, Jakob Chychrun's had a pretty solid game for most of his career, just despite injuries. So I mean, if you're looking at someone that the Hurricanes could bring in to where you already got term with them. You got him for all of next season. And you could look at a possible extension with him too if you don't make that work out. So not a bad option if you want to look at Chychrun. And like I was saying in segment 1, you hope to keep Martin Necas, but let's say if something doesn't work out, again, Chychrun wouldn't be a bad option if you're looking at a Jakob Chychrun. And the Senators aren't going to give up a whole lot, despite the fact that Martin Necas did have a great, Worlds. Chychrun is still looked at very highly by the Senators, but they're also, could be someone that they could move on from. And if you're looking at a possible trade, and that's what I was talking to Jacob Billington about from the Hockey Writers. He said, and we both kind of came to the consensus of a Chychrun and a 2024 third going back to the Hurricanes, and the only thing they're giving up is Martin Necas. So if you're the Hurricanes, you would be kind of happy with the fact that you would have a Chychrun Pesce second D pair. If you do keep Pesce and you got Chychrun for 4.6, then you got a draft pick out of it. So it all really depends. But let me know what you guys think in the comments on YouTube. Who would you rather trade for? Would you rather trade for Hronek or Chychrun, or is there another defenseman that you would hope to go for that could fit within the Hurricanes organization? What a possible deal could look like. So definitely something to keep in mind. I think either one of those guys would be a good option for the Hurricanes, depending on, if you do figure out something with Skjei or you do figure out something that with Pesce. So it's definitely very, very interesting. But in terms of Skjei and Pesce, there was some news on the recent, 32 Thoughts podcast with Friedman and Merrick, where they did have some rumblings of what's going on with either one of those two guys. And we'll talk about that here in a second on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said at the end of segment 2, there has been some rumblings that Elliotte Friedman from 32 Thoughts heard about that he mentioned on Monday's show when talking about, what's, looking at Martin Necas and the Canucks. He said that there's been something good, and I want to put that in quotes because, it's one of those things where it could be a good thing. It could just be something that he might be hearing. So he was very hesitant on saying it because he didn't want to, as he said, radio himself. But he did say that he's heard some rumblings that there is something good happening between either Brady Skjei or Brett Pesce with the Carolina Hurricanes. And I did tweet that on social media, and a lot of people have asked, what's the something good? And who really knows to say what that something good is? Maybe, if I had to take a guess, you're looking at something to where maybe there is some traction in a possible contract extension to keep one of those two guys in Carolina, which then kind of feeds into the Hronek, Chychrun possibilities of, if one of those two guys do stay and you can't keep the other one, and say, Martin Necas really wants the more minutes, he wants more money, he wants this, or that, and the Hurricanes feel like, okay, maybe this just isn't a fit, and we can go out and go get a need on our blue line. This rumblings of something good happening with either Brady Skjei or Brett Pesce could lead to a possible trade of Martin Necas, and they could go to the Canucks, and you're getting Philip Hronek, and there you go. There's your Brady Skjei pairing with him, or maybe he's going to Ottawa and possibly getting Jakob Chychrun to go with Brett Pesce, or maybe there's another team that the Hurricanes are looking at in terms of getting a blue liner that there's your replacement, or they could go out and go get their second line center depending on who, is potentially available. So it leads into a lot of different options. But if you're looking at a Canucks thing, maybe it's, like I said, maybe it's Brady Skjei, and there could be something that could be there. And like I said, it's just rumblings, but that's what Elliotte Friedman said. And if you're able to keep one of those two guys, that's great. Because I know, last season, Brett Pesce did reject a 5x5 with the Hurricanes. And Friedman also did say that there was a Orlov-type-esque deals to Brady Skjei where it's like, higher AAV, but maybe a 2-3 year contract. We're looking at maybe 2 years at $8 million or 2 years at $7.75 or 3 for $9 or 3 for $9 or however you want to do it too, or 3 for $8. So it all really depends on how that looks out. So that there was some talks between both sides. Skjei didn't really want to go over contract talks during the regular season. So maybe there's something on the table to where maybe one or both guys are possibly staying in Carolina. So that could be something good, but who really knows to say? But if you look at how, maybe there's some traction. Maybe there is something that's going on behind the scenes we don't know about, and maybe there's a good thing that you're looking at a Brady Skjei staying, Brett Pesce staying, and then from there, where do you go from there? Do you go into July 1st with maybe going to get a defenseman in free agency, or do you go and possibly get some assets back from Martin Necas and you're bringing in that guy that could pair up with one of those two guys? Who really knows? Or like I said, it could be the option where they worked out a deal for both of them and they're both staying in Carolina, and then you're looking at, what money are you looking for in terms of AAV? Because, from what I've seen, Pierre LeBrun did say that, Skjei and Pesce are both looking at $6 million plus for 5 or 6 year deals to stay. That's what they're looking at in free agency. So you could be looking at a 6x6 for either one of those guys. And then if you're doing that, which one is it? Do you keep Skjei for the 6x6 or do you keep Pesce for the 6x6? And the thing is, are either of those guys worth it? I know Skjei was over 5 and Pesce was just a little under 5. It could be a possibility we're looking at Brady Skjei getting a 6x6. And then if you do you go with it and then move on from Pesce? And then, do you call Vancouver and see if you work out something like that? So who really knows? But it's definitely something that's very interesting if you look at how not even a week or so ago, you don't think either one of those guys stay. And that's even what Friedman even said. He didn't think that either one of those guys would be staying in Carolina. But now he's hearing that there could be something happening in either of those camps. And then, like I said, with LeBrun, he's hearing that both of these guys want over $6 million and they want 5 or 6 year deals. So who really knows? It could be a very interesting situation to where maybe there is a glimmer of hope. There's that sliver of optimism that one of these guys could be staying with Carolina. And then that leads into what's next then. Do you go in, like I said, do you go to free agency or do you go for a trade and fill that other spot up? So who really knows? But I think it's very, very interesting for the fact that we are in the off season for the Hurricanes, but there's still a lot of rumblings and a lot of rumors still going around. And, you think, is there anything going on? It could be really slow for the Canes, with, Don Waddell's no longer there. Eric Tulsky's the interim GM. Like, what are the Hurricanes going to do? And from what's hearing, like from Friedman, the Hurricanes aren't going to be content on waiting 5 weeks until the draft or when free agency period starts. There could be something where there could be some rumblings and dealings already going on. And we're just waiting to see what happens. So definitely no rest for the wicked, and definitely could be a lot of intriguing things to keep an eye on for sure. But either way, it's get ready for silly season and a lot of rumors and a lot of trades, possibilities and mock trades and everything else and all that good stuff outside of the fact that we're less than 5 weeks away from the draft. But who really knows? But I thought it was very interesting for the fact that you look at 32 Thoughts and the fact that you look at how Martin Necas' name still coming up and the fact that Vancouver kind of wants him. And also Hronek was a name that's been brought up as well. And that Skjei and Pesce have some good things going on too. So definitely a lot to keep an eye on for the Carolina Hurricanes over the next few weeks. But that will wrap up a Tuesday edition of the show. Hope everyone enjoys their Tuesday. Hope everyone likes the show. If you want to keep up with me on socials, you can find me on X at OneTrueZach. You can follow the podcast at LO_Hurricanes. If you click the link tree in my bio, you can find where to catch all my writings, newsletters and premium content over at the Hockey Writers. You can check out all my AHL stuff at the Caller Times. There is a link to listen to the Surge Cast on podcast platforms, as long as checking out that show on YouTube. And then if talking about the Locked On Hurricanes, there's a link to where you can listen to the podcast on all podcast platforms. Make sure to leave a 5-star rating. And if you leave a review, I might just rate it on the show, because we want to try to get the show out more, so that way more Canucks become everydayers just like you. Also on the YouTube side of things, make sure to hit subscribe, click the bell notification so you don't miss a show, and also hit the thumbs up button, because it'll really help me grow the show as well on the YouTube side of things, because we are over 870 subscribers, but we are on the goal to 1,000. And if we do hit 1,000, I might just do something really cool for you guys. So make sure to share the show as well on YouTube, because like I said, we want to get more Canucks, become everydayers, and be able to grow this thing more and make it hopefully one of the best Hurricanes podcasts out there, along with all the other shows that are going on for now. But I hope everyone has a great rest of their Tuesday. Like I said, leave in the comments. Let me know which guy you want to keep in either Skjei or Pesce, and if there's someone that you could see coming to Carolina in terms of Hronek or Chychrun or anyone else. Let me know in the comments, and let me know what you think too, because I want to try to keep being more interactive with everyone, because I've been really loving the interactions and the support from everyone. But like I said, hope everyone enjoys their Tuesday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.